It was supposed to be a quiet Sunday afternoon, the kind where the family gathers at my mother's house, the kids run wild with juice boxes, and grown-ups sit around pretending everything's fine. I had dressed up my daughter in her favorite blue dress, the one with tiny daisies stitched near the hem, and braided her hair just the way she likes it. She was excited, practically skipping as we entered my mother's living room. Gifts were stacked on the table, wrapped in colorful paper, glittery bows shining under the chandelier light. Each package had a name tag. Every grandchild got one, except her. I waited, thinking maybe hers was hidden somewhere. Maybe Mom forgot to put her tag. But as the children screamed in joy, tearing open boxes filled with toys and clothes, my daughter stood quietly by my side, eyes scanning the table. Her smile began to fade. I looked over at my mother, who stood there beaming, pleased with herself like she had done something grand. She met my eyes briefly, then looked away. I crouched down and whispered, "Maybe it's in another room, baby. Let's wait, okay?" But her face already said everything. She felt it. That sting of being left out. That slow-burning realization that something was wrong. And it wasn't the first time. My daughter has always been treated differently. Not by me, not by her father, but by my own mother. It started subtly. Skipped invitations, small slights, comments about her curly hair, or how she didn't look like the rest of the family. I always tried to ignore it, tell myself I was imagining things. But today, it wasn't subtle. Today was proof. "Mom," I said, pulling her aside quietly. "Where's Sarah's gift?" She shrugged. "I didn't think she'd need one. She's young." "She's the same age as Lily and James," I reminded her. "Well, she's not like them." That's all she said. I felt my stomach turn. I knew exactly what she meant, but I needed to hear her say it. "What do you mean, not like them?" My mother leaned in and whispered, "She doesn't really belong, does she?" That's when I felt it. The kind of anger that makes your ears ring. I wanted to scream, but my daughter was still watching from across the room, still trying to smile, still hoping it was all a mistake. And just then, my husband stepped inside. He had arrived late from work, loosened tie around his neck, holding a bottle of wine he'd picked up for the occasion. He glanced at the room, saw the gifts, the torn paper, the excitement, and then his eyes landed on Sarah, standing alone, empty-handed. He froze. He walked straight to me and asked, "Where's her gift?" Before I could answer, my mother chimed in sweetly, "Oh, she's fine. She didn't need one." My husband turned to her slowly, and I saw it, that change in his eyes. Calm, but dangerous. The room started to quiet down as he placed the bottle on the table, gently but firmly. Then he looked around and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "So let me get this straight. You got a gift for every grandchild, but not Sarah." "She won't even remember," my mother said with a wave of her hand. "She'll remember this," he said, walking over to Sarah and kneeling beside her. "Because I will make sure she never forgets how loved she is, even if some people can't see it." Then he stood up, picked Sarah up in his arms, and looked at everyone in the room. "Let's go. We don't need to be here." No one spoke. No one even moved. My sister opened her mouth to say something but stopped. We walked out. Just like that. As we stepped outside, Sarah whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" I kissed her on the forehead and said, "No, baby." They did. But deep down, I felt the weight. The history. The years I'd spent trying to fix something that had always been broken. My husband didn't say much as we drove home. But that night, after Sarah went to sleep, he pulled out his laptop and made a few clicks. "What are you doing?" I asked. He replied calmly, "Fixing it. Once and for all." The next morning, something happened that would change everything, not just for Sarah, but for our entire family. And none of them saw it coming. 2 days passed in silence. No calls, no messages from my mother or any of the family. It was like we had vanished, or worse, like we were never there to begin with. My husband, Daniel, kept going about his day like nothing happened, but I could see the fire in his eyes. He wasn't letting this go. Not this time. That night, as we sat on the couch with the TV playing some show we weren't even watching, he turned to me and said, "She's not going to grow up thinking she's less. I won't let her." I nodded, still unsure what he had done on the laptop that night. He hadn't said a word since. But then the next morning, I found out. My phone started buzzing nonstop. Notifications, messages, missed calls. It was chaos. I opened the group chat with my family, one I usually avoided, and saw it. A screenshot. A post. Public. The photo was of Sarah standing in front of that gift table, empty-handed, with the rest of the kids in the background, tearing into shiny wrapping paper. Daniel had written a caption that stopped my heart for a moment. Every grandchild got a gift, except my daughter. All because she wasn't like them. You tell me, what kind of grandmother does that? It exploded. Hundreds of shares within hours. Comments pouring in. Strangers sending messages of support. Some recognized my mother, some even knew our family. And suddenly, what was once whispered quietly behind closed doors became a storm too loud to ignore. My mother called me, furious. "How dare he humiliate me like that publicly?" she hissed through the phone. "He didn't humiliate you," I said quietly. "You did that yourself." Her voice cracked with disbelief, like she couldn't believe I was choosing them over her. But it wasn't a choice anymore. That line had been crossed long ago. The rest of the family wasn't much better. My aunt messaged to say we were destroying the family name, and my cousin sent some snarky, emoji-filled message that I didn't even bother to finish reading. But then something else happened. Messages started coming from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old classmates, parents from Sarah's school. Even one of Daniel's colleagues messaged to say they'd gone through something similar. The post had hit a nerve. Daniel kept calm through it all. He didn't clap back, didn't feed into the drama, he just stayed focused. And when I asked him what the point was, what he hoped to get from it, he said, "I want Sarah to see one thing when she grows up. When someone hurt her, her parents didn't stay quiet." That night, he took Sarah out for ice cream, bought her 2 scoops instead of 1, let her pick the toppings. When they came home, she was glowing. That small moment, a cone in her hand and laughter in her eyes, meant more than any wrapped box ever could. But the story didn't stop there. Because just when I thought things had settled, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text. A physical letter, in my mother's handwriting. I opened it slowly, hands trembling slightly. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. The words were bitter, cold. She accused me of turning Sarah against the family, of letting my husband control the narrative, of being dramatic. "You always loved being the victim," she wrote, "and now you've passed that sickness on to your daughter." My vision blurred as I read the last line. I never claimed her because deep down, we both know she's not really one of us. That was it. The moment the last string holding me to her snapped, I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and threw it into the trash. And I didn't cry. Not this time. I just felt free. Later that evening, I told Daniel everything. He sat in silence for a while, then said, "We're not letting this go to waste. People need to know what this kind of hate looks like up close." I wasn't sure what he meant at first, but then I saw the file he'd been working on. Videos, photos, stories. Our story. He wanted to turn it into something bigger, something that could help other people speak up too. "They'll try to silence us," I warned. "They already are." "They can try," he said, "but not anymore." And just when we thought we'd taken our power back, something unexpected happened. Someone from my mother's side reached out. Someone I hadn't heard from in years. And what they told me changed everything I thought I knew about why my daughter had always been treated differently. The message came through late at night, long after Sarah had fallen asleep and Daniel had gone to bed. I was sitting alone in the dim glow of the kitchen light, scrolling through the endless wave of comments under the post, when the notification popped up. It was from my cousin Emma. We hadn't spoken in almost a decade. Her name flashing on my screen brought back a complicated mix of feelings: childhood sleepovers, whispered secrets, and the painful silence that followed when the family started choosing sides years ago. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. Her message was short, almost nervous in tone. "I saw the post. I need to tell you something. It's about your daughter. It's about everything." I didn't respond right away. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure if I even wanted to hear what she had to say. But curiosity mixed with an ache for understanding made me reply. "What do you mean?" I asked. She replied within minutes. "Can we talk? Like, actually talk? Face to face?" The next afternoon, we met at a quiet park near my house. She looked different, older, worn out in the way only certain truths can weather a person, but there was still something familiar in her eyes. She hugged me tightly, as if making up for the years we'd lost. And then, she started talking. "I know why your mom treats Sarah like that," she said, eyes fixed on the ground. "And it's not just because of her hair or her smile or the way she doesn't look like the others. It's because of something that happened before Sarah was even born." I leaned in, my chest tightening. Emma took a shaky breath. "Your mom never approved of Daniel. You know that. But it was more than disapproval. She found out something about his family years ago, before you got married. She said they were tainted. That his bloodline wasn't pure enough. That marrying him would bring shame." My heart dropped. I had always known she disliked Daniel, but this was something else. Something darker. "So she punished Sarah? A child?" I asked, my voice trembling. Emma nodded. "It's sick, but yes. In her eyes, Sarah was a reminder of defiance, of ruined blood. She said it to me once when she was drunk. That child will never belong here. Not really. Not in my family." I felt rage rise in me again, sharper than ever. Not just at my mother, but at myself. For all the years I had excused the small cruelties, the quiet exclusions, the chilling silences. Emma reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. "She kept things," she said. "Notes, comments, warnings. I took this when I left her house for good. I didn't know if I'd ever give it to you, but now." I opened it slowly. My mother's handwriting danced across the pages like ghosts, pages filled with cruel words, twisted justifications, and careful plans to preserve the family's image. There were mentions of Sarah, cold, detached lines like, "Don't include her in the birthday photo, people will ask questions." And worse. I closed the book and looked up at Emma. "Why now?" I asked. "Why come forward now?" "Because I saw your post," she said softly. "And I saw Sarah's face, and I saw what silence does. I was part of that silence for too long." Her voice cracked at the end. I reached out and held her hand. For the first time, I didn't feel so alone. That night, I told Daniel everything. He didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the notebook in his lap. Then he said something that chilled me to the bone. "She's not just toxic, she's dangerous." And he was right. Because the next day, a call came in from Sarah's school. Someone had contacted them anonymously, claiming Daniel was mentally unstable and unfit to be around children. They had launched an inquiry. My blood went cold. It was her. It had to be. My mother had gone from emotional manipulation to a full-blown attack on our family. And now, she was trying to take away the one thing we had fought so hard to protect: our child. The drive to Sarah's school that morning felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I held Daniel's hand the entire way, both of us silent, our thoughts loud enough to fill the car. He kept glancing at the rearview mirror like he was expecting something, or someone, to come up behind us. When we arrived, the principal was waiting. Her expression was polite but cautious, the kind that told you this wasn't going to be just a routine conversation. She led us into her office, offered us chairs, and then closed the door behind her with a soft but final click. She took out a file and placed it gently on the desk. "We received an anonymous call," she began. "The person claimed to be a concerned relative. They said that Mr. Daniel was exhibiting signs of emotional instability and that Sarah might be in an unsafe environment." Daniel didn't flinch, but I could feel the tension in his body. I looked at the principal and asked, "Do you believe that?" She paused. "We're not here to judge, but we are required to follow procedure." They had already spoken to Sarah. Without us. Without our knowledge. "She said nothing but good things," the principal added quickly. "Said she loved being with her dad, said he reads to her every night and calls her his sunflower." I saw Daniel's jaw clench. I knew that moment crushed him more than any insult ever could. The fact that someone used our daughter to attack him, it wasn't just low, it was evil. As we left the office, Daniel finally spoke. "She's trying to break us," he said. "Not just emotionally. She wants to tear us down piece by piece until we give up." I turned to him, voice steady but firm. "Then she doesn't know us at all." That night, Daniel sat at the kitchen table long after dinner. I watched him scroll through the notebook Emma had given us, cross-referencing names, dates, events. "This wasn't random," he said. "She's been planning this, for years. We just didn't see it." "What do we do?" I asked. "We go public, fully. We tell the truth, our truth, no filters, no fear." I hesitated. "It'll destroy her." He looked up. "She already destroyed herself." So we started documenting everything. The gifts, the absence of them, the photos, the letter she sent me, the school call, Emma's notebook. We compiled everything into one long, uninterrupted video, a timeline of pain, cruelty, and manipulation that painted a picture far more horrifying than anything I had allowed myself to see before. But it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about protection, about making sure Sarah would never again be caught in the line of fire. We posted the video late at night. No captions, no dramatic music, just the truth, raw and unedited. The response was immediate. People flooded our inbox with stories of their own, families that turned toxic, grandparents who drew lines between blood and love, mothers who weaponized silence. The video hit 1 million views in 2 days, and then the media picked it up. Headlines started swirling. Mother exposes grandmother's cruelty toward biracial child. Family secrets go viral. The price of speaking up. And then came the twist. My mother sent a statement to a local news outlet. In it, she denied everything. Claimed we were fabricating lies for attention, that Daniel was manipulating me, that Sarah wasn't even biologically his. The words were a knife, but what cut deeper was the intent. She wanted to strip us of credibility, and more than that, she wanted to strip Sarah of belonging. Daniel read it once, then deleted it from his screen. "We don't respond," he said. "We rise." But the damage wasn't just online. Some neighbors stopped waving. A few parents at Sarah's school pulled back. Whispers followed us like shadows in grocery store aisles. And through it all, Sarah remained unaware, innocent. Her world still full of storybooks and bedtime songs. We protected that fiercely. And yet, I knew the final storm hadn't come yet, because someone else reached out, a name I hadn't heard in nearly 20 years. My father. Seeing his name in my inbox felt like reading a ghost's signature. My father had vanished from our lives when I was barely a teenager, swallowed by silence and divorce papers, his memory reduced to faded photographs and awkward explanations. I had always assumed he left because he didn't care. My mother made sure I believed that. "He ran off," she would say. "Some men just don't know how to be fathers." I never questioned it. Not really. Until now. Until his name reappeared in bold letters, carrying a message that began, "I've been watching what's happening. I think it's time you knew the truth." I stared at the message for a long time, my mind tangled in confusion and fear. What truth? What could possibly be worse than what we had already lived through? "Still," I replied. We agreed to meet at a small diner just outside town. Daniel offered to come with me, but I said no. This one, I had to face alone. When I arrived, he was already there, older, grayer, but still carrying the sharp eyes I remembered from childhood. He stood when he saw me, hesitant, unsure if he should smile. I sat down slowly, every muscle tense. "I didn't come to make peace," I said quietly. "I came because you said there's something I need to know." He nodded. "I deserve that. But listen, what I'm about to say may change everything you thought about your mother, about me, about why I left." I crossed my arms, guarding myself. "I'm listening." He took a breath, then began. "Your mother, she was never the victim. She told everyone I cheated, that I abandoned the family. But the truth is, she pushed me out. because I found out what she really thought about people who didn't fit into her perfect image, and I didn't agree with her. That was my crime. I frowned. What do you mean? I mean, she hated anyone who challenged her idea of what a good family looks like. When I hired a black assistant at my firm, she lost it, said I was bringing shame to the family. It wasn't just Daniel she had a problem with, it was anyone different. And when I started defending those people, she started turning everyone against me, including you. The air around us grew heavier with every word. My stomach twisted. I remembered moments I'd buried, times she spoke in hushed tones about neighbors who were too loud or not from here, the way she clutched her purse tighter when we walked past certain people. I had ignored those signs, dismissed them as generational ignorance. But now, hearing it laid out so clearly, I saw the pattern, the hatred, the obsession with control. She told me you left because you didn't want me, I whispered. He shook his head, eyes full of regret. She made it impossible for me to stay. I tried to fight, but she threatened everything. My job, my reputation, custody. And I thought, maybe you'd be safer with her. I was wrong. I didn't speak. Couldn't. The tears came quietly, burning down my cheeks as the puzzle of my life rearranged itself into something darker, sadder, but somehow clearer. He reached into his coat and pulled out a stack of letters. I wrote to you every birthday, every Christmas. She returned every one. Marked, refused. No such recipient. I thought maybe one day you'd find them. My hands trembled as I took them, the dates lined up, my entire childhood. He looked down, voice low. I saw what she did to Sarah, and I saw Daniel's post, and I realized I can't stay silent anymore, not when it's repeating. I nodded slowly. It is repeating, but this time, we're stopping it. When I got home, I told Daniel everything, showed him the letters, watched the fire build behind his eyes again, not rage, but resolve. We're not just defending our daughter anymore, he said. We're breaking a cycle. And just as we made that vow, another twist came, an email from a lawyer. My mother was threatening to sue us for defamation. The legal notice arrived 2 days later, formal, cold, dripping with accusation. I read the words over and over, not because I didn't understand them, but because I couldn't believe she actually did it. Defamation of character, emotional distress, public slander, it was all there. My mother, the same woman who had quietly poisoned the roots of our family tree for decades, now wanted to claim she was the one being wronged. She wasn't just denying the truth anymore, she was trying to erase it completely. Daniel sat across from me at the kitchen table, the letter in his hands, his fingers steady but his jaw tense. She's playing her last card, he said quietly. She knows she's lost the narrative. This is about damage control now. I wanted to laugh, but the fear in my chest choked it back. A lawsuit wasn't just a threat, it was a strategy. One meant to intimidate, to silence, to exhaust us into submission. And the cruelest part? She knew we weren't wealthy. She knew the financial pressure alone could make us back down. But we didn't. Instead, we called a lawyer. A good one. The kind who actually cared about the story behind the case, not just the facts on paper. Her name was Maya, and from the moment we stepped into her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Confidence. Maya read through everything, the letters, the notebook, the recordings, even the anonymous school call report. When she looked up, her voice was calm but decisive. She has no case. If anything, you could countersue for harassment and emotional abuse. What you've documented isn't defamation, it's survival. Still, the process wasn't simple. My mother's team filed official papers. We had to give statements. Sarah's name kept surfacing in the discussions, and even though we tried to shield her from the legal chaos, I could see the tension creeping into her drawings, the way she clung to Daniel's hand a little longer before bedtime. It broke me, watching our daughter absorb the fallout of someone else's hatred, but it also fueled me. We were done being silent. Around this time, something unexpected happened. More family members, cousins, even a couple of aunts, started reaching out. They'd seen the video. Some apologized for staying quiet, for believing my mother's polished lies for so long. Others admitted they'd experienced their own version of her cruelty. "She used to pit us against each other," one cousin confessed in a voice memo. "We thought it was just how families were, always competing, always proving something. But it was her. She was the one who needed control." Every story, every message added weight to the truth we were finally telling. And even though the lawsuit loomed over us like a cloud, something powerful was happening beneath it. Support was growing. Strangers sent letters, artwork, even handmade gifts for Sarah. Survivors of toxic families shared their stories with us. What started as a painful personal wound had become something much bigger, a movement. But still, there was one question that haunted me every night. Why? Why go this far? Why try to ruin her own daughter's life? Why try to destroy Daniel, to isolate Sarah, to manipulate everyone around her for years? And then I remembered something from the notebook, a page Emma had pointed out but I hadn't fully read. I pulled it out late one night, flipped through until I found it. The handwriting was messy, rushed. The date was nearly 20 years ago. The words were brutal. "She'll never be one of us. I warned her not to marry him. Let her live with the consequences. Let the world see how far she's fallen." And then it clicked. It was never just about Sarah or Daniel. It was about me. My mother saw my marriage as a betrayal, as proof that I'd chosen love over legacy. She saw Sarah as a stain, not a blessing. And all this, every cruel act, every lie, every manipulation, was her twisted way of reclaiming control. She wasn't trying to protect a family, she was trying to punish one. I closed the notebook, heart pounding. I knew now what we had to do. We weren't going to just defend ourselves, we were going to finish this. The court date arrived on a gray Monday morning, the kind of day where the sky feels too heavy to lift. We walked into the courthouse holding hands, Daniel's grip tight around mine. I could feel the tremor in his palm, but his face was calm, focused. Sarah stayed home with Emma, unaware of the weight her parents were carrying into that courtroom. I glanced around and spotted my mother sitting beside her lawyer, perfectly composed in her navy blue suit, like she was attending a board meeting instead of a trial that would expose everything she'd tried to bury. She looked at me only once, and when she did, her face held no remorse, only disdain. The proceedings began with formalities, statements, objections. But when our lawyer, Maya, stood up and played a short excerpt from the video we'd released, the part where Sarah's face lights up as Daniel calls her his sunflower, the entire room shifted. The courtroom, once full of cold distance and procedure, grew still. Even the judge leaned forward. Then came the letters from my father, the ones she returned unopened for years. Then the school call logs, tracing back to an untraceable number we'd linked to her assistant's account. Maya moved through each piece of evidence like a surgeon, clean, deliberate, irrefutable. My mother's lawyer tried to object, claiming bias, fabrication, emotional manipulation. But with every document Maya laid down, every story she backed with proof, the argument collapsed. What had started as her lawsuit against us began to look like something entirely different, a mask slipping off, revealing a decades-long pattern of control and cruelty. And then, just when the room had absorbed all that, Maya dropped the final piece, the notebook. She read aloud from the page I'd found, the one where my mother had written in her own hand that I had fallen, that Sarah would never be one of us. The silence that followed was thick with discomfort, like the truth had left the air too sharp to breathe. I looked at my mother then. Her jaw was locked, her lips tight, but her eyes, those eyes that had once ruled over our family like a queen over a court, were suddenly small, cornered, human. Outside the courtroom during a recess, people began whispering. Some stared. A woman I didn't recognize walked up and quietly said, "I watched your video. I went through something similar. Thank you for standing up." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Back inside, my mother refused to testify. Her lawyer made excuses, citing emotional duress and mental fatigue. The judge wasn't impressed. The lawsuit was dismissed on the grounds of baseless defamation and counter-evidence proving harassment. In a rare move, the judge even issued a statement that she had serious concerns about the plaintiff's credibility and pattern of emotional misconduct. We won. but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like closure. Cold, bittersweet, necessary. As we left the courthouse, reporters hovered outside, trying to catch reactions, headlines, drama. But we didn't speak to them. We got in the car and drove away in silence, letting the weight of it all melt slowly into the air between us. When we got home, Sarah was napping on the couch, clutching her favorite plush rabbit. Daniel sat down beside her, brushing a hand gently over her curls. I watched him, and I realized something that made my throat tighten. We didn't win because we proved my mother wrong. We won because we refused to let her define our family. Later that night, I uploaded a final video. Not for the views, not for the headlines, but for everyone who had followed our story and needed to know how it ended. In it, I said only this: some people will never love you the way you deserve. Some people will choose control over connection, legacy over love. But you don't have to carry their choices. You can build something better. And sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's living well, freely, with the people who love you exactly as you are. Weeks passed. The dust settled slowly, like a long winter thawing into a hesitant spring. Life began to return to something close to normal, or at least a new version of it. Sarah laughed more. Daniel started painting again, something he hadn't touched since our world had been thrown into chaos. And I, for the first time in years, stopped holding my breath. But healing, I learned, wasn't a moment. It was a million small ones. It was hearing Sarah call Daniel Dad with pride in her voice. It was receiving a letter from my father with a photo of us from years ago, tucked inside like a reminder that not everything had been lost. It was watching the sun filter through our kitchen window and realizing that peace didn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it tiptoed in quietly, but even peace has its echoes. My mother didn't disappear. She retreated, into silence, into whispers, into whatever corners of the world people crawl to when they've lost their audience. I heard through distant relatives that she'd sold her house, moved somewhere quieter. Some said she was writing a memoir, others that she'd taken up some cause or another to rebuild her image. I didn't care. Let her chase her illusions. Let her rewrite her version. I had stopped living inside her story. One evening, while folding laundry, Sarah walked in holding her drawing pad. "Can I show you something?" she asked shyly. I nodded. She opened the pad to a page filled with color: blues, yellows, soft pinks. In the center was a house with 3 figures standing in front of it: a little girl, a woman, and a man holding hands. Above their heads, she'd written, "My real family." I didn't cry. I just pulled her into my arms and held her as tight as I could. That same week, I got a message from a woman I didn't know. She said she had seen our story, and it gave her the courage to leave a toxic home. Then another came. Then another. I started replying. At first just thank yous, then longer messages. And eventually, I began writing something more. A book, maybe. A memoir. A record of what it means to choose love over blood, truth over silence. Daniel encouraged it. He even offered to design the cover. "Let's tell it all," he said. "Not just for us, but for everyone who doesn't know they have a choice." And we did. Piece by piece, chapter by chapter, we told the truth. Not out of revenge anymore, but out of clarity. Out of hope. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do with pain is plant something new in its place. Years later, Sarah stood in front of her high school auditorium, giving a speech as she accepted an award for an essay about overcoming prejudice. She quoted Daniel. She mentioned me. She even acknowledged the hurt, but not with bitterness, with strength, with grace. And in that moment, watching her under the soft lights, confident and fearless, I knew the cycle was broken. The story had changed. She had changed it. And that was the real ending. Not the courtroom, not the scandal, not even the victory. The real ending was a beginning. One born from truth, healed through love, and written by a little girl who once asked why her gift never came, and grew up learning how to give the world something better instead.